Good morning and welcome back to my video. My name is Frank. I am a professional recruiter and job developer, and I made my first video about a week ago, and perhaps you caught it. This was just kind of like a brief summary of what it's going to take in your job search, and today we're going to continue with that. I just wanted to recap a little what we covered last week, and the very first point is for those of you who are recently new to the job market, if you've lost your job, some sad news actually being reported by government statistics is for those of you who are currently on the job market, it's saying that a lot of you don't even look 10 minutes a day for a new job. What can you possibly do in 10 minutes, even if you spend 10 minutes? So, one of the things I mentioned is you need to have a very active job search. That job search should entail at least a minimum of 4 days out of the week, at least 4 to 5 hours a day. So in other words, 20 hours a week you should be dedicating to total job search. I mentioned again about putting together a very basic spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet, if you will, dates, times, employers, contact people, any information that you need to follow up on that job, okay? All right, well, getting into part two of today, we're going to again continue on. And before we do, I'm going to do a little Q&A here. I had some people respond to my very first video. And so with that in mind, question number one. Robert from Dallas, Texas, he writes, Frank, can you talk just a little bit about some of these other job developers and recruiters out there? I'm noticing that there seem to be more making videos and on the uprise, and quite frankly, some of them kind of concern me. They seem like they're more involved with selling merch and contests and things of that nature. So would you mind responding? Thank you, Robert from Dallas, Texas. Well, let me say I kind of agree with you. There are in any field, there are good and there is medium and then there is very bad. All right. So, Robert, if you're concerned about those who seem to be interested in contests and making up situations that seem very untrue, and again, they want to sell merch and all that, well, I always say take the good with the bad. You know, perhaps there's some good information you can get out of them, but I wouldn't spend much time, and especially on those. I'll give you an example. There is a young gal who has a site. I won't mention any names, but she is now saying that this particular employer is willing to give you $75,000 if you just contact them. Now, come on. Are you that gullible? Don't believe it. There's no employer out there waiting to cut you a check for $75,000 for doing nothing. I wish it was true. I'd be there in line. So, but again, these are some of the off the wall things some of these recruiters are coming up with. And why, you may ask? Well, they simply want to build their page. You know, the more the merrier, the more subscribers they get, the more money they make. And it's sad, but there are those out there that give very little information about the actual job search. And by the way, that's what I'm about. I'm not about merch. I'm not about contests and such, okay? I want to give you informative information for your job search and needs. All right, question number two comes from a young gal by the name of Sally. Sally is in Illinois, and her question is, can you define what does it mean when an employer asks you, tell me something about yourself? Very good question, Sally, and I will venture to say that in every interview, at least every interview I've been in, that question always comes up. Tell me a little bit about you. First off, when an employer asks about you, they don't want personal information. Don't divulge information about your marriage, your children, the hobbies. That's not what they're looking for. All right. And by the way, many of those questions would be illegal, like especially if they ask you how many children you have. Okay, that's illegal. They can't ask that. But what they're looking for, let me give you an example. Let me give you an example of what I would say if I was the one being interviewed. I would start off by saying that I'm a person who enjoys working with both staff and systems. From the staff side, I've developed many to be very successful in the art of customer service and sales. From the system side, I have a very workable knowledge of MS Word, Excel, Windows, PowerPoint, and proprietary software systems. So I don't want to really say too much into that because I think that gives an employer a pretty good understanding, again, what I'm about and some of the skills that I have. Okay. So then if they want to delve into that more, then they can do that. Okay. So thank you for that question. Another question comes from Bob. He's in Rochester, New York. And Bob's question is, I've been out of work now for 10 months. The resume that I was using, I was getting at least some hits on it. I've listened to some resume writers and developers. I've even paid money for some, and I'm getting less contacts now than before. Well, let me just say, Bob, that uh, it gets back to don't mess with success. If you had a good working resume and if you were getting hits off of it, I wouldn't change it. I'd go back to what you were using at least, and maybe what you just need to do is just kind of like doctor it up a little bit, subtract some things, add some things. But if definitely, even the one that you paid for, if it's not getting you any hits, why use it? Okay, so thank you for your question. One last question we'll take. And this is from a gentleman by the name of Larry in Ohio. And his question has to do with employers today and what is it that they are really looking for. Well, it's a kind of an open loaded question because there could be many things that they're looking for. So let's start by saying what they're not looking for. An employer is not looking for somebody who seems unmotivated, uninterested, uncaring, and we can get into this a little bit later about job applications, but especially on the job application where it says job applying for, never ever leave it blank and never ever say open. That tells an employer that you just looking for money, you don't care what job, I just do anything. That's a bad signal, and majority of the times when it comes to the job application, especially human resource people, they will use that to screen you out. Okay, so very important that you acknowledge. So, in other words, if you're applying for a customer service representative position, put that in the box. Make it very specific what you're looking for. Okay, well, thanks for the questions, and I will take more. And by the way, if you have any questions, just jot it down, let me know, and I'll try to get to as many as I can. Thank you. All right, so let's talk a little bit now about now that you're out of work. One of the first things that begins to happen, especially if you've been out of work, perhaps a couple of months or so, the first thing you want to start doing is what? Going through and reducing things off of your budget list, things that you think you can't afford anymore. And lo and behold, surprisingly, many people will choose to cut off their internet, which they need to find a job, and they also cut off their cell phone. Oh my God, you don't want to do that. So let me give you another helpful tip here. Many of you may not realize, but in this box right here, and I'll show you in a few moments, is what we call the Obama phone. Okay, this is a government-free program. And if you're already on EBT, SNAP program, Medicare, Medi-Cal, Medicaid, you automatically qualify for this phone. This is a free Android phone. It's not the best phone, but it does work. It does its job. Also, the service is free every month. You get unlimited talk and text, and you get 2 gigs of data. Now, 2 gigs of data isn't much, so here's what I suggest. This phone has a capability, it has a hotspot on it. So use it when you're at home, turn on your hotspot, use your personal internet to use your data. So then when you're out, the 2 gigs of data, you can use that, but use it sparingly, okay? But again, in order to keep this phone, once you get it, the only qualification to keep the phone in the service, you must make at least 1 phone call per month to keep the service activated. Okay, now with these programs now, this one is particularly through what they call Assurance Wireless is the carrier. They're through T-Mobile, their network system. And the phone that they give you, maybe you may not be too thrilled about it, but again, it works. But with Assurance Wireless, you can call them. They actually sell upgraded, better phones if you want to pay extra money for that. You can also import your current phone number to this phone. Okay, so you don't have, because when the person that you get this phone from, they're automatically going to assign you a number that's next in line with, their contracts. Now, where do you find these people? Well, you can find them especially in front of the welfare offices, EDD offices, Walmart, Target. These commonly places where you'll find people, and you'll see the umbrellas, and they'll say free government phone, or they'll say free Obama phone. The reason why they call it Obama phone, the Obama administration are the ones that instituted this program. It's a great program if you can't afford a phone. It's free of charge, and believe me, it can work. Okay, so enough with that. Other resources, I believe I mentioned in my very first video. Information 211 on your phone. If you dial 211, it's an information service. They're connected nationwide. They have oodles and oodles of network support, from helping your grandma to job search, whatever it may be. So if you feel that you need some extra help along the way, remember 211. Okay. Other resources to keep in mind would be your local library. Some libraries have a very good system set up for job seekers and resume writing. Also, there are what they call career one-stop centers. I worked for a few of them. They're very good. They're knowledgeable. They can help you and assist you in writing your resume. They even have job developers on site. If you sign up with them and interview with them, start taking some of their courses, which is free, they'll help you find work as well, or at least they'll help identify some employers that you can contact. Okay, so the very first thing you want to do is get plugged in to good resources and network, okay, as much as possible. Okay, so here we are now in my second video, and we're going to continue on with job search. If you think about the word in itself, job search, it's a search, all right? And sometimes to get out those little golden nuggets, if you will, where are the jobs, you're going to have to seek it out. Now, I mentioned networking, okay? 72%, remember this, 72% of all the good jobs are on what they call the hidden job market. Why is it hidden, Frank? Because it's on purpose. The employer wants to work within a network system, and they usually try to offer those jobs, first of all, to their current employees. But the reason why it's hidden, they don't want to pay $500-$600 for a posting when they know that they don't typically get the quality of candidate that they're looking for. So on the hidden job market, you want to talk to people at your local church, call these companies that you're interested in, try to network. I mentioned LinkedIn.com. Join LinkedIn. It's a professional site. The framework looks like Facebook. The only thing is you're connecting with professional people, and there are groups to help you in your job search. Okay, so believe me, if you want to cut out at least 60 to 80 days of your job search, okay, learn the secret keys. Learn the hidden job market. Learn where the good jobs are at. I mentioned before in my first video, it'll take you as long to find a bad job as it will a good job. So If you're a skilled person, you have customer service, you have sales, you're articulate, you have maybe 20 years of background in software, why in the world do you want to go apply at McDonald's? They don't want you, they don't need you, and the thing is, you're just wasting your time. Okay, and even if they did happen to offer you a job, why set your career back 5, 10, 15 years? Okay, because, excuse me, if you take a job like that, you may end up being there another 5 years, believe it or not, and now what are you going to do? Okay, then you got to start all over again, and then it's going to be hard to justify to an employer where you rightfully and willfully belong to say, well, why was I wasting my time 5 years over there? And they're going to want to know, and I hope you have a damn good answer. All right. Okay, so again, keep in mind that LinkedIn resources, if you need a phone, check it out. And again, if you do happen to be looking for somebody, you can even go online and find out where, just say free Obama phones or free government phones near me, and they will give you locations. But make sure if you do go, bring with you any information you have, like EBT claims or EBT card that you're collecting, your Medi-Cal, whatever. So this way they can run that information through the system, and again, in most times you will qualify, no problem. Okay, so now you've been on your job search for a while. You're discouraged. You just came from a barbecue on Sunday with Aunt Mabel and Uncle Rick, and they're trying to give you some solid advice. Well, by now, don't you think you should start flipping hamburgers or doing anything just to start bringing money in? Don't take that advice, because as I mentioned to you, you want to stay focused. And even in my own personal career, when I was in the job market, I have found out many times I try to play that same game, just hit and miss, run the numbers game, and then when I got focused again, that's when the good job offers started to come. And why? Because again, I mentioned to you, an employer, when if you ask me the question, what is an employer looking for? They're looking for a lot of things, but they're not looking for lazy people. They're not looking for people who are living in the past. They're not looking for people who can't get over the fact that now I've been out of work and I miss my other company. It's time to move on. All right. Matter of fact, yesterday I watched a very interesting video of a young man. Well, not young anymore. He's in his late 50s, but he used to work for American Motors / Chrysler back. At 19, he went to work in 1972. He just turned 19. He stayed there pretty much all his life. Ended up marrying a woman there. His dad used to work in the factory, and all they kept talking about was, he mentioned, they asked him, well, when Chrysler took over the plant, were things better, worse, whatever? And he says, well, throughout the years we constantly kept hearing about layoffs and shutting the plant down, but we never really took it serious. Well, get a load of this. He worked his way up to a shop foreman working under the union now for AMC and Chrysler. They didn't even tell him till he went home and watched the news that night after 15, 16 years of employment that his job was gone. Not only was his job gone, but his wife as well. Now, how would you like to be in that situation? You dedicated your life, and so why do I bring up this particular story? Because I come from that era of in the 70s when I graduated, mid 70s when I graduated high school. We were made a lot of promises. A lot of people can talk about the boomers today, and the boomers did this and boomers did that, but I'm going to tell you something. We were made a lot of promises by big corporate America. You come on with us, you're going to have a good job, good benefits, and rightly so, a lot of them did that. But they also said, you stay with us to the end, you're going to get your gold watch, retire, and live happily ever after. It never happened. They were gone before we were gone. Okay? So, all that to say, Look at your job search today, perhaps as a blessing. Even maybe you don't look at it this way. Perhaps you felt that you were in a dead end job. You wanted to move on anyway. So this could be a good opportunity for you to start thinking about what you now want to do with your life. I always say that when I counsel somebody one on one, I always say that this is probably the best day of your life, even though maybe you want to punch me in the face for saying that. But this possibly could be the best day of your life. Uh, you can pick up, you can pick up and again start negotiations and look at better jobs, better paying jobs, better future. And one thing you may want to learn along the way too. In today's employment world, people move around every 2, 3, 4 years. It's hard to find a company today where you'll have anybody more than 5 years invested in that job or in that company. It's kind of sad to say that in a way, but where has the loyalty gone? Well, the employee feels that the employer isn't loyal. The employer feels the employee isn't loyal, so they have a mismatch. Oh, and by the way, when we mention statistics, there's another statistic out there that says that 70%, and this has been going on for years now, 70% of all people in their current jobs are a mismatch. How did that happen? Don't we have the best interviewing techniques? Don't we have the best HR people? So why are they getting the wrong people? Well, quite frankly, is because they've been asking the wrong questions. I've gone to interviews where I'm just kind of like dumbfounded. They want to know what kind of animal, zoo animal I want to be, or and what they're looking for, and then I even had one interview, and this guy says, well, if you can have any exotic car, what does that have to do with my skills? And you see, and unfortunately they ask questions that don't lead to the right applicant. And it's sad for them. It's sad for you because they may look you over, but that's where in the interview, and the next thing I want to talk about is that you need to be in control of your end of the interview. You can't control the whole interview. You can only control your piece of it. And what I mean by that is take every advantage to make sure that you get out the information to them loud and clear. This is my hard skills. These are my soft skills. This is what I'm about. This is what I've done. And this is what I've provided. And most importantly, what I can give you today in your company, what I can do for you. Okay, and these are the people that get jobs. Spinning up maybe a little bit now in the interview, you'll always have a closing statement, or they may even ask you, by the way, Frank, anything else you want to add or make a comment about? Don't ask for Disneyland tickets, for God's sakes. Don't ask them for how many benefits I get. No, that's not the time for that. What you want to do is make a closing statement. This is what I do. I say, well, Mr. Employer, as we know, for the last 45 minutes, we've been talking a lot about your current position that you need to fill. And we talked a lot about my job skills. I feel very confident that the skill level that I have can meet your needs, and I am willing and able to come on board to meet that need. Okay, and stop. You see, again, you don't want to rattle on, you don't want to say too much or too little, but you want to make an impression. And all too often when I interviewed people, sadly to say, when it comes to the end where they had the chance to impress me, how many paid holidays do I get? And that's not the time for that because you haven't even been offered the job yet. You haven't even got to the place of negotiation of salary. So you don't need to be talking about Disneyland tickets. You don't know that. Okay, enough said. So during the process, now that you're out of work, hopefully you're beginning to see that it's important to have a structured job search. And when I say this to people, they kind of I can see in their eyes, like the deer in the headlights, it's like, God, what's he talking about? Because this is all new to them. You got to keep in mind that some people hadn't been out of work in 25, 30 years, believe it or not. And hey, I'm telling you, it's difficult. And in my situation, I had one job in particular. I was there for 16 years. And even leaving that, I had to make new adjustments. I had to re-engineer. You're going to hear that term. What does it mean to re-engineer yourself? And it's important that you learn to stay in the game and be in the game. If you're not even in the game, you're not going to stay in the game. Okay, so when it comes to re-engineering, it means using the current skills you have and adapting that to enhance it for the sake of that new company. I can't tell you how many people, and even younger people that I've interviewed. I mean, there was one young man, I won't forget him. He was 21. He was already working into senior management at 21. I mean, he started at 17 in this company, and I mean, he's serious. He's as serious as a heart attack. This kid, and you know what? Employers see his enthusiasm even at 21. He can put people in their 50s to shame. And I'm going to tell you something. Age has nothing to do with enthusiasm, believe me. And being young has nothing to do with enthusiasm. You can be as dead at 21 as you are at 80. So again, it's all about being able to sell yourself, and that's the next thing we want to talk about. We want to be able to say, how is it that you sell yourself every day? And when I hear people say, well, I don't like sales, I would never want to do that. Well, I got some sad news for you, because every day you're involved with sales one way or another. As an example, have you ever gone into a shoe store and they had this particular shoe and you wanted it, and maybe there was some other promo that they had or whatever, and you just kept playing on it? Well, you're selling yourself because you wanted that. Okay, whether you realize it or not, you're selling. Every day we're selling ourselves. We sell ourselves to our friends, our neighbors, our family. And you know who we sell ourselves more to anybody else? Our spouses. Oh, yeah. Think about the family vacation last year. Mom wanted to go visit Aunt Mabel out in Illinois, and Dad wanted to go to Hawaii. So, gee, now what do we do? Well, you know what? This one family had a great idea. They says, well, let's see if we can compromise. Let's see if we can take half of this trip. If we can budget it, go see Aunt Mabel, and still be able to accomplish the rest of it. You see, it's give and take. That's sales. Your wife has to sell to you. The husband has to sell. So every day we're selling. So you have to do that in your job search. Put together a sales profile. What do I mean by profile? Not just a resume. Put together perhaps a brochure. There's nothing wrong with that. Your picture, an introduction about yourself, your enthusiasm, what you're about. Right there, matter of fact, you can build in that question. Tell me something about yourself. You can answer it in that brochure right there. So don't be afraid to reach out and do things that other people aren't doing, because when you find out what people are doing, then you want to do the opposite, perhaps. Because if they're not getting the job either, then perhaps there's an angle that you can pull to do it. Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to run out of time for right now for this particular video. But again, stay tuned to part 3. Hit the notification button below and like. And we will see you again. Thank you.